Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description.
Okie dokie. So this is going to be more of a broader spiritual topic, but it's spooky season right now, and I forgot how I kind of fell into this thing, but I've been digging a lot, because it's spooky season, into a lot of things on exorcisms and, different spirituality kinds of things. And I found this podcast. Well, first I found this priest who did a lot of talks on YouTube and a lot of interviews because he's an exorcist. And then I found his podcast. And there's the podcast itself, if you want to check it out, it's got its first season up. I think there's about 8 episodes on real exorcism cases. And it's called, The Exorcist Files. And it's very, very interesting. Now, if you are a, pagan and the whole Christianity thing kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth, that it does that same thing to me too. But I think that the perspective that it provides in terms of evidence of there being something else out there that is not, on this same plane of existence is very important. Why? Because it gives evidence to the fact that the spirits and different things that we work with out there when we're working magic and whatnot are real, and I'm probably going to be talking about a couple of the examples on this particular episode, but it's insanely interesting. The idea that when the exorcist is working with particular clients that are supposedly possessed, he does a couple of different tests to see if it is psychological, just psychological, like a disorder, or if it is legitimate in nature. And a couple of the tests that I can think of is he distracted a guy by putting books in front of him and got him to keep talking. And he went behind him and there was a glass on a shelf, and he just dipped his finger in the glass, and unbeknownst to the guy, and of course the guy was looking the other way and couldn't see it, there was holy water in this glass. And really interesting, holy water is mixed in made in a bunch of different ways, and one of the ways is salt and water, and you bless both, and then you mix them together and you bless it. But I really want to try to figure out how to make that stuff myself. But he dipped his finger in the holy water, and he just flicked the tiniest bit on the back of this guy's shirt. Now, it was such a minimal amount that there's no way that this guy could have felt the water hitting him. But the second it hit the shirt, the quote-unquote demon manifested, and, the guy's voice changed, and he started complaining and screaming and whatnot. And so that was interesting. Another one that I can think of is, he'd be interviewing and talking with a guy that's supposedly possessed, and unknown to that guy, he would have previously planned that to have someone else in the next room. And you can't hear between the rooms, of course, at a certain time, start to pray for the positivity and, removal of any negative forces and whatnot from that particular person. And at that exact moment, the possessing demon would then manifest and be like, what the hell is going on here? So there's a lot of this really random evidence that you can't account for, and you can't make logic of it in a scientific manner. One of the interesting things is that this particular priest guy, he works with a bunch of these relics from the church, which is relics from the saints, which means something that a saint touched to something that a saint owned, or even most morbidly, a piece of like a body part of a saint. And he talks about how there's several different instances of of miraculous healing happening. Some guy who was in a wheelchair for 55 years got up and walked. Another girl had her tumor disappear after touching a relic from I can't remember her name. It's like one of the youngest saints. Very interesting story. And this guy actually wrote a biography on her. But the most interesting one is he got this like a piece of cloth that was reportedly, according to whoever gave it to him, from the Shroud of Turin. If you don't know what the Shroud of Turin is, it's located in a church in Turin. I think it's in Spain, and it's supposed to be the burial cloth for Jesus that he was wrapped in after he was crucified. And there's, they've done some tests on it, and all they can say is that like the blood is male and it's from a guy of Middle Eastern descent. Now you could say, oh, that thing is fake and blah, 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 and whatever. But let me walk you down a little interesting thing here. So this guy would sometimes take relics and use their quote unquote power to help get a demon out, because demons don't like prayer. They don't like the name of God or Jesus, and they don't like anything that's related to a saint because of the purity of the energy, I guess you could say. And I'm using my witchy terms to describe it ish. But this particular demon was in a guy, and he was, they were praying, and the demon was complaining and mocking them, saying, you'll never get rid of me, yada, yada, yada. And the guy took this piece of cloth that he wasn't even sure was from the Shroud of Turin, but he's like, hey, I'm going to test this out. And he touches it to the guy. And at that moment, the thing in him stopped complaining, stopped screaming, stopped griping, and immediately made the same posture as Jesus in the burial cloth. So arms crossed over the chest, legs completely straight out, just absolutely still, and it started to whimper, right? Now, you could say, oh, that guy was just totally faking it, or the story is fake. Okay, you could always say that all these stories are fake. But let's say that's a true story. How could this random person know that this particular random piece of cloth is from the Shroud of Turin? And given, let's say he didn't know that, well, then what would make this coincidence happen of this guy immediately making that particular posture? And also, I think he touched it on the guy's back, so the guy couldn't even see it. So that immediate reaction in that way is very interesting, because it speaks to the legitimacy of these particular objects. Now, along with that, you might kind of be a little bit skeptical, like me, on the whole Jesus is the Son of God story and whatever. And let's throw out the idea, then, that Jesus is the Son of God, per se. If Jesus was a, powerful prophet, powerful spiritual person, and what the Caro Indians would call the Caro natives from South America, would call a sixth level person, meaning that they are able to spontaneously heal people, which Jesus is reported to do, and very, very highly spiritually skilled and kind of ascended in that manner, then that would speak to his legitimacy as being able to arguably, let's say, perform magic. And if that's the case, then the same could be arguably said about saints, and therefore relics of the saints, as being at a high spiritual level in a positive light. And therefore, negative entities such as spirits and whatever, it's like they're kryptonite, because they're on the opposite end of the spectrum, and being affected by these objects would indicate the legitimacy of that particular spiritual power. Now, could the church have misunderstood these kinds of things, or twisted them in a way to kind of blow their story up to make it bigger, and therefore claim more legitimacy or a mandate of God around Jesus being the Son of God and all this spiritual stuff? Yes, but you could kind of take that out of the picture and get the idea that highly evolved and highly ascended or high-level spiritual people have a certain amount of energy with them, or a certain characteristic to them, that is kind of like the light side of the force, I guess you could say. And for it to have such an effect on those on the negative side of the force, using the force in Star Wars and whatnot is a very good analogy now that I think about it. It's very interesting. And I mean, I'm talking about this because, one, it's been on my mind, and two, I've always been looking for evidence of the legitimacy of spirits and the spiritual power of objects and just magic and an expansion of my worldview on what is out there. Because this whole physical world, all this stuff that I'm looking at right now, to me, there's no way that's it, right? But to look for evidence of that other side of things is very hard, because you get so many skeptics out there and so many people that try to just, legitimize things. You watch like ghost hunting videos and whatnot, and they always try to find a rational explanation for things. And what if you can't? Like I had a past life vision one time and I have no rational explanation for it. I've never had anything like that. I've had psychic impressions where I know when things are going to happen, and I've never had, and those kinds of things, they come out of nowhere, and when they're different. And, so I guess one of the interesting things, if you wanted to, start a conversation or leave a comment on these kinds of things, what do you think about the different things I've said of highly spiritually evolved people and their ability to make, powerful, for their objects and different things and their relics to be powerful? What do you think about the legitimacy of, other spirits that are out there and these cases that lend to the idea of spirits and other entities even reacting to them, leading to their legitimacy? What do you guys think about this stuff? Do you think it's all made up, or do you think that there's some legitimacy to it? And if so, how can we elevate ourselves to that same level of spiritual prowess? Yeah, good talk. So let me know what you guys think about this one. You can always reach out to me. You can, email me. You can leave a comment, and definitely follow and subscribe if you haven't, because I put out stuff like this all the time where we're exploring magic, spirituality, manifestation, and what have you. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Good hunting.